So, in keeping with Star Wars stuff that we watch, we actually decided to look up and watch the Star Wars Holiday Special. For those of you who don't know, that's a made-for-TV movie that was made after A New Hope, 1978, I think.
Late 70s.
Yeah, and basically it was something that George Lucas regrets and wants to destroy every copy of it. The guy who made episodes 1, 2, and 3, the prequels, is ashamed of something, and it's not that. Be very afraid, people.
The plot to this movie.
Basically, what it is apparently Han Solo is trying to get Chewbacca home to the Wookiee planet so we can celebrate Life Day.
Made up holiday.
It's apparently got some Star Wars expanded universe stuff because I looked it up on the Star Wars wiki. Okay, but doesn't really do anything here other than serve some weird plot device for stuff to happen and make it a holiday special. Because meanwhile, while Han and Chewie are going home, Chewie's family is all yelling at each other like,
just acting stupid.
And I don't understand what this is. Like, I don't know why they got the entire cast to be in this thing.
It's basically, the most simple way you can put it is it's a really shameless cash grab off the huge success of A New Hope.
Yes.
And it's just really apparent that either the director and writer of this hadn't seen A New Hope.
Yeah.
Or they just didn't care about it and were trying to make money. Because, like, just certain plot points. It's like the Empire. You'd think that they would be weakened because the Death Star was just destroyed.
And now, in like this thing, for some reason, there are scenes where the Empire is shutting down bars on Tatooine for no reason, and then invading homes because they suspect rebel activity, and they still have a bunch of like stuff, and it's like they're not affected at all. I mean, I realize this probably isn't canon, but since this came out after A New Hope, I would assume this to be after A New Hope. So
you think that like they would at least kind of care and maybe think maybe the Empire isn't as powerful, but nope, the Empire is probably more powerful than it was in A New Hope. And one thing, we're reviewing this as a TV movie, not an actual movie, and as a TV movie, it's awful.
It's just, as I mentioned earlier, they got the entire cast to be in this thing. Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, Harrison Ford. Lando wasn't introduced yet, so Lando's thankfully not in this.
It's an introduction of Boba Fett.
Yeah, Boba Fett is in this movie for the first... For some reason, Boba Fett is, like, here for the first time. I'm not one of those people who loves Boba Fett, but even then, I find it weird that they put him here and introduce him. I mean, you know, whatever.
I'm on the flip side, where I'm a fan of him. And, like, whenever I get to see more of Boba Fett, I'm like, that's awesome. But he has no part in this movie. He's just...
Yeah.
He shouldn't be in it.
The thing is, the part Boba Fett is in is this weird animated section where it's like this really bad cartoon animated thing of Star Wars stuff, which is animation of Zelda CDI quality. Yeah, this quality. I'm going to put a picture right here. The YouTube poop stuff. My boy, this piece is what all true warriors strive for.
It's the worst animation I think I've ever seen. I mean...
Not Food Fight bad.
Well, you have Han Solo in it. And it does not look like Harrison Ford. It does not look like
it looks like one of those people in like a Pixar movie. Like I know the character's face, but like it's one of those characters who has like no eyes and like always like this and has like long like things.
He looks like a combination between Woody from Toy Story and Nicolas Cage. That's the closest I can describe.
That's basically it. What I don't get about this movie is also it feels really choppy. Like, it reminds me of Grown Ups in that a lot of scenes are isolated scenes that have nothing to do with each other and just go on. Like, especially in the scenes where Chewbacca's family, like, we see the Wookiee kids and, like, later Chewbacca's wife is, like, turning on like, this program to, like, learn. And then it's like, oh, no, welcome to a cooking show. Stand up, weep, stand up, weep. And that goes on for like 10 minutes, and later on we get another scene, which is that animated scene, which is like that, and then later on we get another series, which is like this weird Wookiee simulation Oculus Rift thing, where it's this weird...
Watch it, it's incredible.
It's honestly baffling that someone somewhere actually watched it and thought it was okay.
It's like done in these 10-minute segments, where it's just like, and they really are just like these, they're like, it's like a really horrible episode of Saturday Night Live. Like, that's how I can describe it. It's not funny. It's meant to be funny, but it's not. It's horrible.
It's an hour and a half, but it feels like 3 hours.
It felt horrible. I felt like I was...
Like, I honestly don't even know how this Like, I read up a few things, and apparently, like, George Lucas wasn't involved in this, like, at all. Like, they showed him footage, and he was like, okay, I guess you can do that, but don't you think, nope, we're gonna make it.
That's not a good sign when Lucas wants to distance herself. I mean,
And,
like,
like,
it's horrible.
it aired on TV once and never again.
It's on YouTube, though. That's how we checked it out.
Yeah, but they removed the cartoon for some reason, so we had to find that elsewhere.
The thing about it is,
even
there
know
are
why it's-
parts of it where, like, cartoons and then, like, musical numbers that make no sense, where you actually have to think to yourself, okay, like, am I fully conscious? Am I fully sober? It's so bizarre, and it's an hour and a half long. Like Benji said, this is the longest hour and a half of my life. I felt like I was watching the extended edition of The Return of the King. If you don't know, that movie's close to 5 hours long. It was unbearable.
I honestly, like, the only saving grace about this movie I can say is that it's Star Wars, and I love the lore of Star Wars. And there are some scenes, like the first scene where it's like Han and Chewie, like, in the Millennium Falcon doing their thing, running from the Empire and all that. It looks cool, but then we switch to Chewie's family, and it just gets all LSD, trippy, weird, whatever, hate this stuff, we don't care, just throw it out there because it's Star Wars and people are gonna love it because A New Hope did so well. And, like, when the Star Wars cast on screen, I was like, that's cool.
It's cool.
But they were like not even there, and you don't care, and just nothing makes sense. Like,
It's illogical. I mean, the acting's good, but the writing is just like, it's not there. It's just
I
not
would love to see the script of this movie when they were just on the Wookiee planet, because all Chewbacca's family does is
people who complain about the Minions in Despicable Me and are like, they're stupid. I don't know what they're saying. People like the Minions, but then, like, you know, and people are just like, oh, I don't want to see just 10 minutes of Minions interacting. It's just with the Wookiees. I love Wookiees. I love Chewbacca. He's my favorite character in Star Wars.
Really?
Yeah, I would probably say he is. I mean, he's just lovable. He's adorable. He's a badass. But then when you just have 20 minutes of his family not even doing anything meaningful to the Star Wars lore and just sitting around and cooking and climbing up fences and doing virtual reality simulations, it's unbearable. I mean, it's laughably bad at times. So there were times where we just looked at each other and we were like, what is happening?
Yeah, and it also suffers from some of the worst, like, green screenish effects, if you
It's
could even
awful.
call it that, if it's not just finger puppet animation on a still picture.
I think it was.
Which it probably was. And then there was these weird dancer guys that appeared a lot. They were like holographic projections.
That was incredible. There's one scene that goes on for like 5 minutes. All these just,
And it's just-
little guys dancing.
I really honestly can't bring myself to talk about this thing anymore. It was horrible. I hated it, and I have no problem calling this the worst Star Wars thing ever. This is a million times worse
Yeah.
than the prequels. I would rather marathon all 3 prequels with no breaks or pee breaks or food breaks or water breaks than watch this again.
I mean, there are parts of it. First off, it's laughably bad. It's horrible.
At
It's one of the
times.
worst things I've ever seen. But the saving grace is that it doesn't have an effect on the Star Wars universe. It's not in the
Yeah.
lore. It's not in the canon.
Yeah.
And that it's
Probably
an
makes
hour
sense.
and a half. I mean, keep in mind, an hour and a half is very long for this, but it's not 2.5 hours. And it's still one of the worst things I've ever seen, but I can kind of forgive it based off the fact that it's a TV movie. But even as a TV movie, it's dreadful.
I'd rather watch Sharknado.
So would I.
Yeah, it's just terrible. Even Clear Tell, no one cared about making this thing. They just made
It's a
it
cash job. It probably made a
Whatever.
lot of money off of it.
I don't care, and I don't want to talk about it anymore. I'm just gonna give this movie my rating of a 5%. 5. That's how low I'm going.
I said that there are parts of it that are enjoyable, but because it's so bad. But as a whole, it's dreadful. It's just one of the worst things ever made. So I'm gonna have to go lower than you, even though I laughed at some parts, but enjoyed it because of how.
Also.
And I'm gonna get it to a 2.5%. The only reason I'm not going 0 is, like I said, there were some parts that made you laugh because it was so silly and nonsensical, but also because it's Star Wars. And I'd rather have a bad TV movie with Star Wars characters than with just normal characters, because you get to see Han and Leia. But
Yeah.
it's still horrible. 2.5.
I never thought the worst part of the Star Wars anything would be in the original trilogy setting and not the prequel setting.
At least it's have to. It's on the lore. It's on the.
You have to
canon.
see Hayden Christensen.
That is a plus.
We're just gonna go.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about this anymore. It's scarred me.
Adios, home slices. And don't watch this movie. Don't.
Check it out.
Don't. Well, you can if you want because it's on YouTube. Bye.
You just see it to believe it.
Oh, yes, you do.